Thanks. I'm going to talk a little bit today about open access and how that agenda is changing publishing, how the book market in the humanities, which is the focus of Academic Book Week, is interrelated with serials publishing in the sciences, and how the library budgets come together to create an environment in which we have some substantial economic challenges to harness the digital possibilities of the internet. And I'm going to frame this around three areas. I'm going to talk about open access. I'm then going to talk about remuneration of publisher labour and the economics. I'm going to talk about the challenges when we start to imagine technological possibilities that have problems in the space of digital preservation and in the replication of ongoing software. And the place I want to start at is the model that we've developed at the moment for scholarly communications in scientific publishing, for the most part in journals. And it looks a little bit like this strange circle that I've put up here. These are researchers, not toilets or anything like that, by the way. It's just a convenient logo that I found. So we have a system where researchers are paid on almost the last system of patronage in the ideal situation. So there's a lot of precarious labour in the academy for sure, but we pay researchers a salary so that they can give their work away. Most universities in the UK do actually own the copyright on their researchers' works by default, but almost all of them disclaim it on academic scholarly works back to the author in that case. It'd be very hard pushed to find that kind of environment outside of a university. In any case, researchers need certain labour functions from publishers in the dissemination of their work, but also in the assessment of their work. And you might want to think about the tricky relationship between having the widest readership, but also being assessed by a group of peers who have scarcity as the main factor in their decision-making, say for a hiring panel. Anyway, researchers give their work to publishers in this way. They also give work, that was estimated by the Research Information Network in 2008, a total of £1.9 billion worth of unpaid cash costs of peer review time, usually paid for by universities. But in any case, what we're talking about here is not normally, apart from the trade cases that Catherine was touching on in the non-fiction space, going to make a lot of money through direct sales for the researcher. If you can live off the royalties from an academic monograph, see me afterwards and tell me what you did. Congratulations, Slavoj Žižek, sitting at the back, you're doing well. The point is that most academic books are not selling in sufficient volumes, academic monographs that is, to make their authors a living. They make their living from their salary. Publishers perform their work and sell it back to libraries in this model that's worked well for quite a long time, not as long as some people think, but also not an insignificant portion of the 20th century. The point is, though, that actually more and more the case that we have a smaller and smaller group of very large publishers in the scientific publishing space. Elsevier is the classic here. It's the one we all pick on. They made a 37% profit with a revenue stream of 2.06 billion and a profit level of £760 million in 2012, in the middle of a global recession. They're not doing badly out of their scholarly publishing enterprise. But this affects those of us working in the humanities as well. Our book budgets are not divorced from Reed Elsevier sucking up library budgets, and the humanities are often at the bottom of the food chain there. I also want to point out, though, that we have a similar trend in the humanities, with smaller and smaller number of publishers publishing more and more volume of academic material. If you look at Bloomsbury Academic, they're a great example of this. Bloomsbury purchased Continuum, which had purchased Methuen Drama, Arden Shakespeare, T&T Clark, Berg, Cassell, Bristol Classics Press, Fairchild Books, AVA, the list goes on. You've got these mega organisations publishing substantial volumes of academic research material. In any case, the publishers sell it back to libraries, and no library in the world can actually afford all of the academic serials that they want to subscribe to. We've documented instances of Harvard cancelling on the basis of price, which is different to me saying they're cancelling because they can't afford it, by the way. They cancel on the basis of price. But eventually it comes back to provide access to researchers. We have this strange closed loop where researchers are giving their work away, but I've never heard a researcher say, I'm not publishing there because my library can't afford it. They're publishing because they want to be accredited. Publishers selling back to libraries who can't afford it at the behest of researchers for what they buy. It's quite a strange economic cycle. But that model of paying for the labour of publishing, which is valuable and should be continued, we have commissioning editors in book series, we have typesetting, copy editing, proofreading, digital and non-digital preservation, platform maintenance, legal, accountancy, this all has to be remunerated. But the way we're paying for it at the moment as a commodity purchase makes it a closed access system. Those in the academy get access, those outside don't. Now, the reason I went into education is because I believe in people having access to education. Things like tuition fees actually disgusted me when they were introduced in this country. And so it made sense to me to think about how we could change our research publishing culture so that people could have access to that. If we can't give them tuition for free, could we do things to how we publish in order to make that more broadly accessible? And open access refers to conditions under which peer-reviewed research is available to read and reuse with some constraints on the internet. It uses the digital dissemination of the internet to allow any member of the public without paying for access to get there. And how do you do that? Well, either you find a model that works with what publishers are doing at the moment, we call that green open access. You put a copy in your repository and it's usually not the final version, but people can get access. Or you come up with new business models for publishers, so they're paid from a different source or sources so that it can be openly available. But you do still have to pay for publisher efforts there. It's not as though something that's free to read was free to produce. But the remuneration of publisher labour in an open access environment is difficult. And it's very difficult in humanities subjects in particular, where sources of funding for the dominant emerging business model are not readily to hand. So there's an article processing charge is the model that many publishers have come up with for open access in journals. They say, if we can't sell it, then we're providing a service to authors and you will pay a fee to us, or your funder or your institution will, when it's been accepted. That works quite well in the sciences when you have a mega grant. You know, if you've paid £25 million for your lab kit, an extra £2,000 for your publishing efforts is not really going to break the bank. But this is just a bit of back of the envelope modelling of humanities literature departments around the country. The left blue bar shows the amount that's currently spent per year in a 5-year cycle on serials here. The other bars represent different levels of article processing charges if all the researchers that are ref returnable were going to produce 4 outputs for which we paid. And what you can see is that all the other bars at the levels that are being actually charged, as opposed to my fictional levels at the far right, are larger. So it's a small English department, a medium, and a very big one. And it gets even worse when you talk about books. The left blue bar in this case represents the Sconal purchasing budget of £60 million in 2012, which was used to purchase all books. If you take the Palgrave Macmillan price of £12,000 for a book processing charge for a single open access book, you get in some hot water pretty quickly because you've used almost the entire budget for all types of books, paying to make a set of ref books, just the ones we put in the ref last time, open access. Now, it works better when you get down to the levels charged by new press like Ubiquity Press, or even Cambridge University Press's price is not so bad on that. But, as Richard said when we first came in this room, we work in an international environment. If we think about what the UK is doing, then that budget has to cover everything from every country that is not pursuing an open access route at the same time if our scholars are going to have access. And unfortunately, that puts us into a competitive situation at the international level. Are we going to lose out to other countries who will continue to purchase that? And for my last slide, I just want to talk about, so far this evening, we've actually spoken quite traditionally about a set of publishing conditions, a set of problems. But if we're going to talk about the future, there are people who come to me with some fairly radical ideas for what we could do in terms of data publishing and software publishing. They talk about interactive artifacts. They talk about data sets ranging from very small computational analyses of works of literature up to terabytes of historical data. And they say, well, we've got the internet. Couldn't we publish all that? Well, I've been talking about the economics because I really do believe that we have to have a sustainable publishing ecosystem with paid labour underwriting that in order to make sure this stuff doesn't just drop off the radar. I was speaking with a group of plasticists at Duke about a year and a half ago. They told me about an edition of the Iliad we only know by the proxy of citation. Other editions refer to it. We don't have the original. That's not something we want in scholarly communications. It causes problems for our claims to truth and so forth. So when you talk about making data available, well, what are the architectures we need to preserve arbitrary large digital objects? How do we know that software that runs today is going to run 10 years down the line? Well, we could preserve the whole operating system, but then we have to preserve a system for running that operating system that emulates hardware. Quickly, when we get into this kind of technological imagination about the future, we run into very real social labour problems that exist today that are about how we transition from our current model to one in which we let people read online. Thank you.